Chapter 1. The Microbial World and You. Most of us know that microbes are often the cause of some pretty nasty diseases, but maybe not too much more than that. So, what's the definition of a microbe anyway? Well, microbes are organisms that are too small to be seen with the naked eye. In fact, most times we need to use a microscope in order to magnify and observe them, even though they are the most numerically dominant organisms on the planet. They live in pretty much every habitat that exists on the Earth, and in science terms, we call that ubiquitous. Since they're the largest population and inhabit every niche on the planet, then they must have some pretty important roles. In fact, they do. They produce over half of the oxygen available on the Earth. They are the original green species. That is, they represent major recyclers of biotic or living materials back to abiotic or non-living materials and nutrients. And they produce some pretty important nutrients that we need. For example, microbes living right in our digestive tracts make several essential vitamins that our bodies absorb. As you're starting to see, microbes have many other jobs besides causing disease. They make lots of other important products that we value, including food and beverages like cheese and buttermilk, probiotic supplements like vitamins that keep us healthy, antibiotics that cure us of other diseases, and even biofuels that run our vehicles. They also help keep us healthy by helping our immune system to prevent pathogens from being able to colonize our bodies. They also produce wastes like carbon dioxide and methane, which contribute to the problem of global warming. But they also help break down toxic compounds and waste in landfills and chemical spills. Scientists have determined that the cells in an adult human body are composed of about 30 trillion eukaryotic cells, plus 40 trillion partner bacterial cells. And some of these are pathogens, and some of these are normal flora. Some of these prokaryotes, or mostly bacteria, are permanent members of the community, but some can also be transient. And that means that they are microbes that are just temporarily passing through the body. The human microbiome has become a popular topic in medicine and health today. In fact, researchers are discovering relationships between microbes and obesity, microbes and cancer, microbes and mental illness, and even microbes and gut disorders, just to name a few. Microbes come in a really diverse assortment of shapes and sizes, as you can see on the right here. They represent major taxonomic groups of organisms, some of which are considered living, and some, like the viruses, are a group that the scientific community is still debating as to whether or not they should be considered, quote, alive or not. There are three major taxonomic groups of microbes: the prokaryotes, the microscopic eukaryotes, and the viruses. Our class is going to focus on the prokaryotes, which include bacteria and archaea. Both of these groups are unicellular organisms that lack a true nucleus. We'll talk a little bit about the eukaryotes, primarily fungi and algae. And eukaryotes differ from prokaryotes because they have what we call a true nucleus. That is, their DNA is surrounded by a membrane. Lastly, we'll study the viruses. These are acellular and non-living microbes which are completely inactive unless they are inside of a living host cell. And this makes the definition of life a question in the scientific community. Just like cats, dogs, flowers, and trees, microbes are organized or classified into groups. You might recall that Linnaeus is credited with the first taxonomic classification scheme. Each organism has a first name, or a genus name, and a last name, a species name. This two-name system is referred to as binomial nomenclature. And because these names are often found stemming from Greek or Latin, they're always written in italics if typed, or if they're handwritten, both terms are underlined. The genus name is always capitalized, and the species name is always in all lowercase, as you can see here with the genus and species name for humans, or Homo sapiens. So let's talk a little bit about these domains. These groups are based on biochemical evidence. Bacteria are unique from the other two domains, and that the organisms in this taxon lack a nuclear membrane, and most of them have cell walls that contain a chemical called peptidoglycan. Archaeans also lack the nuclear membranes, but they have an altogether group of chemicals in their cell walls than bacteria do. They also tend to occupy some of the most harsh environments that the Earth has to offer: high salt, high temperature, toxic pH, etc. And then lastly, the eukarya are defined by the presence of their nuclear membranes. This slide demonstrates the variety of organisms within each domain. It's really not intended for memorization. It's just an overview to help you visualize some of the differences. In the next section, we'll explore the domains a little more deeply.